So after ranking all the games in the God of War series, I have decided to follow that video up by ranking all of the bosses out of the 7 games from the worst to the best.
A simple child will not trouble me, Athena. Burn this village! Burn it to the ground! The monster you've created has returned to kill you.
I've taken some liberties with this list by compiling some bosses into one ranking, for example all the trolls in God of War 2018. So with this in mind, I counted 72 individual boss characters, not including Deimos, as he's more of a protagonist in that game. And with my grouping, I've gotten it down to 43 ranks. If you enjoy discussing video games, then hit that subscribe button. I hope you all enjoy. Let's do this.
And reunite us? Okay, you were right.
Coming in at last place is Gullvieg from God of War 4. This is an evil spirit who reanimates in one of the optional missions within the game. This is just pure a standard Revenant enemy, just with more HP, and it's just as irritating to fight as the basic Revenants. Why this was even a boss in the game, I have no clue. Sticking with God of War 4 at number 42, we have the Ancients. There are 7 of these bosses in the game and consist of Stone, Fire, Ice, Forest, Lava, Soul Eater, and Soul Devourer. These are so low on the list as all 7 mostly play out the exact same. They consist of using the same ranged attacks and are took out the same. Wait for their weak spot to open and launch your axe. Rinse and repeat. At 41st spot is Dark Rider. This boss is about as exciting as its name. Again, it feels like a basic enemy just with a lot more HP, and you fight it in a lackluster Star Fox-esque on-rail section. Easily the least satisfying boss in all of God of War 2. At 40th spot is Wild Cerberus, also from God of War 2. This game has so many boss fights, of course some, like Wild Cerberus, are just going to be bigger standard enemies. This Cerberus has horns on its middle head and more health than usual. Moving on. At 39th place is yet another large 4-legged boss, the Perseus Lion from Ghost of Sparta. It may only have one head this time, but put up a better fight than the Wild Cerberus, so it gets this higher spot. At 38th spot is again another Cerberus. This is the Mole Cerberus from again God of War 2. While yes, this again another Cerberus enemy just with more health, Mole Cerberus actually is the most difficult, coming in a bit later in the game, and also was more significant as it eats Greek hero Jason just minutes before you begin the battle. Once it's defeated, the iconic Golden Fleece is yours. In at 37 is the infamous Gorgon Medusa from God of War 1. Now I think it's a huge shame that such an iconic Greek monster such as Medusa is so low on this list, but she literally is just a colour swap of your standard Gorgon enemies and puts up zero fight whatsoever. It's cool that Medusa is here, but there was no more effort made. At 36th place is the Dark Elf King from God of War 4, whose name I'm not comfortable pronouncing. This boss reminds me a lot of Medusa, as he's simply a stronger Dark Elf with a lot more health. But unlike Medusa, he puts up a good fight. This is also the first boss on this list that I'm happy to call a boss. He's just not a memorable one. Staying with God of War 4 at number 35, we have the Trolls, of which this game has a whopping 10 troll battles, some of which are better than others, like Grendel of Frost and Ashes and Helsing, both of which have different strategies and abilities than the other trolls. I think it would have been better if there was around 4 troll fights and had more time spent on them. In at number 34 is the first boss on this list from God of War Ascension, the Manticore. Yes, this is a pretty typical more HP enemy with a few attacks borrowed from the Cerberus. However, its wings bring with it a whole new dimension to the fight. And this is the first boss on this list which isn't a reskin or repeated. At number 33 we have Scylla from God of War Ghost of Sparta. This is definitely the most cinematic boss on this list thus far, but unfortunately it's just another sea monster, and after the Hydra in the first God of War, I felt like I had already seen this and done a lot better. Scylla barely puts up a fight, and for me defines what Ghost of Sparta is. It's got ambition, but just not quite there in the execution.
What evil have you wrought on this city, Persian?
Evil? It is not evil that I bring, Spartan. I bring the might of Persia and the sacrament of purification.
Our 32nd spot is the Persian King from God of War Chains of Olympus. This greedy royal from the lands of Persia is the first boss on this list to have some dialogue and interaction with Kratos, as all previous entries have just been monsters.
Olympus has sent a message, and I am here to deliver it.
Then you are just a messenger. So take this message back to your little gods. It will take more than a pathetic Spartan to stop the power of the Empire.
The Persian King isn't a tough boss, but he does bring with him the demon Ifrit, which is from Persian mythology, and was also the first time a different mythology besides Greek was brought into the franchise. At 31st spot we have God of War 3's Skorpius boss. This boss actually has a very neat introduction. You start off by facing small scorpion enemies, and suddenly this queen scorpion bursts onto the screen. This boss actually makes you use the new weapons that you've collected in the game to defeat him, but besides this, it's the weakest boss fight in God of War 3.
If not, at least I can bathe in the glory of being the one who brought down the mighty Kratos, the slayer of gods.
Coming in at 30th spot is the Greek hero Perseus from God of War 2. He made an unwise choice getting in the way of Kratos. He uses a helmet to become invisible, and while he shares an awesome music track, it's one of the easiest and, put bluntly, boring battles against a known Greek historical character in the franchise. At 29 we have the Basilisk from Chains of Olympus. For the first handheld title in the franchise, this was a great way to begin your God of War game, showcasing that even the PSP can handle the large battles that the series is known for. However, the fight itself is pretty uninspired. The Basilisk has a fairly bland design, and the climax of the battle on a bridge is underwhelming to say the least. At 28 we have our next Greek hero, Theseus from God of War 2, yet another lackey of the gods to get in Kratos' way. Again, Theseus is very much a human enemy with a lot more HP. However, his fight has a few more dimensions to it, in which he climbs above you and spawns standard enemies to wear you down. It's far from the best, but does end on a satisfying conclusion to Theseus' story. At 27th place we've got Charon the Ferryman from Chains of Olympus. This is actually one of my favourite designs for a mythological character in the series. However, his fight is a bit hit and miss. He moves about a lot, doesn't have many attacks, and ones he does look very similar to attacks from traditional ranged enemies and satyrs. However, what puts him at 27 is the first stage of his battle. He actually defeats you and kills Kratos. But not to worry, as you climb out of hell for the 900th time and get your revenge. At 26th place are the Furies from God of War Ascension. These are the main villains of that game and consist of Megaera, Tisiphone and Alecto. Megaera is killed off fairly early, but it's Tisiphone and Alecto who you'll fight at the end. Now, Tisiphone has some different moves than traditional enemies due to her phoenix, which she summons in battles. Alecto has the power to turn into a giant sea creature, but a lot of that battle is just a QTE. An awesome QTE, mind you, but nonetheless, these three sisters are just not that interesting villains, feel more like fodder for a larger villain, and this is shown off in their battles.
Kratos, where are you off to today? Kill any family members lately? Oh, that's right. You're off to kill your father, Zeus.
The first god on this list hits number 25, Hermes, the god of speed from God of War 3. What puts Hermes above the others is he has really funny taunts against Kratos, and also his battle starts off with a great chase sequence through the city of Mount Olympus. But even someone as fast as Hermes can't outrun Kratos. The actual fight against Hermes is, well, pathetic. He becomes one standard human enemy with his speed attack. Hermes, you tried, but you failed to be an engaging boss. At 24th place is Callisto from God of War Ghost of Sparta. Callisto was once Kratos' mother, but turned into a hideous monster by the gods. Callisto has a good dynamic with Kratos, leaving him questioning his actions once the fight is over. However, this battle is just yet again a large creature with lots of HP and not many standout moves.
Come down here and face me now, Zeus!
At 23rd spot we have another sea creature, the Kraken from God of War 2. While this boss certainly has an awesome design, the actual mechanics of the battle whittle down to just attacking the creature's weak spots. This is a legendary beast, and it's nice to see it's been treated better than Medusa, but the Kraken could have been so much more.
I have come too far to fail!
Taking the 22nd spot is another God of War 2 boss, simply named the Last Spartan. What puts this pretty lame fight between a god and a generic soldier at number 22 is purely the drama and storytelling behind the actual battle. This Spartan was Kratos' last ally, and in a fit of pure rage inside a dark artistic background, they battle to the death as both have been through hell. Once it's revealed who you were fighting all along, you and Kratos are shocked. The battle itself may have been weak, but the narrative twist makes it regardless one of the best encounters in all of God of War 2.
I have faith that our brothers of Sparta will live on through the true God of War.
At 21st place is Medusa's sister Euryale, also from God of War 2. Unlike Medusa, Euryale is not just a reskinned Gorgon enemy, but instead features her own moves, animations and character model to differentiate her. She doesn't have any background and she's a simple boss to take down, but nonetheless a decent addition to the God of War 2 Rogues Gallery. Coming in at 20th place we have Thanatos' daughter, Erinys, from God of War Ghost of Sparta. Erinys is a cool addition to Ghost of Sparta, being an angel-looking god who can transform into an eagle, and does so in her second stage of the battle. However, she has zero background again, or feud with Kratos, and her fight is over pretty quickly and ends on a lackluster free-fall section. In at number 19 are the 9 Valkyries from God of War 4. These are easily the most difficult bosses in the entire series, and put up some amazing, challenging fights that get them at this 19th spot. And while they often utilise similar attacks and strategies and feature no significant backstories, the Valkyries still obtain their own personalities and movesets to distinguish themselves. However, these are all that's left to fight after the main campaign is over, and going through all 9 may be a rush of adrenaline for some, but I found them highly tedious and much repetitious. Coming in at 18th spot is Kratos' rival, the barbarian king Alrik from God of War 2. Before Alrik became an undead spectre, he was the one who bested Kratos in the battle between the Spartans and barbarians. However, the first time Kratos had help from Ares, but now it's just Alrik versus Kratos, and this is a blood-fueled battle from beginning to end. You get pulled through mud and rock, and have an epic showdown with the horseback champion who wields one mighty large hammer.
The Oracle may have yet spoken truth. The marked warrior shall bring about the destruction of Olympus.
At 17th place is the main villain of Ghost of Sparta, the god of death, Thanatos. Now, while Thanatos is a pretty lame lead villain, very stereotypical bad guy, and also had the fly away and return as a big monster cliche, but what puts this boss above Alrik is that this battle is the only one which has Kratos fighting alongside his brother Deimos, and not only does it make the battle 10 times as epic, it also brings with it a huge emotional depth to the boss when Thanatos gets the best of you and defeats your brother. Thanatos is the best boss in Ghost of Sparta. Our 16th spot is the first boss in the series, the Hydra from God of War 1. This was a remarkable intro to the franchise, starting you off by facing the 2 lesser heads and then introducing a bigger third head which you impale onto the ship like a chicken skewer. This boss has mythological significance, an awesome design, great atmosphere, and a solid build-up. At 15th place we have the Titan Cronos from God of War 3. This boss is, first of all, flipping humongous, and it's not just an interactive cutscene like in Asura's Wrath. You actually climb all over Cronos. He is the level here, and the things you do to him aren't ethical, let's put it that way. Santa Monica had a tough job turning such a large character into a boss, but they pulled it off the best they could for the time. However, what keeps it at 15 for me is, like I said earlier, he feels more like a level, as most of the actual battle is facing smaller grunt enemies or climbing along his body. At 14th spot we have an interesting one. A wonder of the ancient world, the Colossus of Rhodes, has been brought to life by Zeus and tasked to kill Kratos. This was a terrific fight to kick off God of War 2 and really showed the sheer magnitude Santa Monica was going for with this installment in the franchise. The singular fights against the Colossus themselves aren't anything special, but as the starting segment to one of the best games on the PS2 period, complete with the final segment in which you destroy the Colossus from the inside out, and you've got one of the most memorable sequences in the franchise. Coming in at 13th place are Thor's sons Magni and Modi from God of War 4. These guys were delightful surprises as they are encountered when you haven't fought a good boss for quite a while. While it's basically a fight against two stronger human enemies at once, as they both have separate health bars, the dynamic between Kratos and Atreus is what makes this battle as good as it is. One of the brothers will always be occupied with Atreus, and every now and again Kratos will have to protect Atreus as the brothers try and ambush you. But these are two gods, and in comparison to the other gods on this list, these guys are not given enough time to show their respective powers, and are swiftly beaten.
My, quite persistent, isn't he?
His persistence only means his death.
Where Magni and Modi failed in distinguishing themselves from other human enemies and displaying their godly powers, our 12th spot doesn't, Pollux and Castor from God of War Ascension. These guys have control over time itself, and this is used very creatively in their battle as they manipulate the floor around you, and they're also not light on moves, having a fruity array of moves that will constantly keep you on your toes for the whole fight. It ends on one of the most satisfying kills in the whole franchise.
Calm yourself, boy. Stay behind me.
At 11th place is the dragon Euryale from God of War 4. This boss was a huge of fresh air from the other fights prior to this one. It starts off inside the mouth of the flying behemoth as you tear at her tongue, and soon you'll be on ground level face to face with the beast. This stage of the fight is fairly simple as you dodge her attacks and throw explosives at it to stun the dragon, and can then go in and attack it. However, just because it's simple doesn't mean that it's not a ton of fun, as the animations and mechanics of the fight are fitted with intricate detail, and the boss comes to a close with an incredible finale.
Spartan, witness the end.
Starting off the top 10, we have the best boss from Chains of Olympus, Persephone, the wife of Hades. In Chains of Olympus, Persephone sets out to destroy the world as she feels it's the only way that she can end her marriage with the god of the underworld. This is one of the few God of War villains that truly has an upsetting and human side to her end of the world schemes, and this makes her a compelling villain. But not only is her backstory gratifying, but her duel against Kratos is also. She's one of the first winged bosses in the franchise, and also gets the Titan Atlas involved in an electric QTE that has Kratos chain him to the pillar of the world, and Persephone gets her final fisting. Coming in at number 9, we've got Aegaeon the Hecatoncheires from God of War Ascension. There's a humongous titan which has had a prison built around its body, and also acted as the opening boss for Ascension. As you travel through the prison, you'll face off against Aegaeon's hands, which have mutated into these green monsters. Then the final climax will end on facing Aegaeon himself in a visually mesmerising battle that is a feast for the eyes. Aegaeon is another simple enough battle against a giant. Take out its limbs or smaller parts and then the head. But all of its stages are incredibly well designed and make up one of the best bosses, if not the best, in God of War Ascension.
You are still just a mortal. Every bit as weak as the day you begged me to save your life.
I am not the same man you found that day. The monster you've created has returned to kill you.
Coming in at 8th spot, we have the original God of War, Ares, from God of War 1. This guy has one of the biggest build-ups in the franchise, as the whole game is centered on gaining the power to kill Ares. And when you get to it, it doesn't even matter if Ares' boss battle was just a QTE, as the trials that you've been through to get to Ares are worth it enough for this spot on the list. But thankfully, Ares offers a fantastic final battle to the original game that not only has strong story significance and multiple stages, but also has rich dialogue between the two. But what puts Ares just below the main better God of War 1 boss is the third act, which gives you a shared health between the two and basically becomes a tug of war battle, and it's a pretty weak end to this otherwise explosive finale.
I was trying to make you a great warrior.
You succeeded.
At 7th spot, we've got the Steel Minotaur, Pandora's Guardian from God of War 1. This is definitely one of the most interesting designs of a classical monster in the series. Pandora's Guardian is like a steampunk Minotaur, which makes Kratos look like a toy in height comparison. Being made of metal, as you dish out damage to the Minotaur, its armour will begin to shatter and break, leaving its flashy innards prey to a spike-launching weapon built into the stage. For the lack of bosses that the first game had, this is one of the best from that game, for its atmosphere, mechanics, and satisfaction.
You challenge me, mortal? A god of Olympus?
At number 6, we have the God of the Sea, Poseidon from God of War 3. Poseidon is the opening boss of the third installment, and what an opening it is. Not only do you get an exhilarating climb up Mount Olympus whilst Poseidon's water horses try and ambush you, but it also ends on one of the most epic duels as Poseidon truly uses the full might of his godly sea powers to try and take you down. This fight is a joy to the eyes and certainly was one of the best opening sequences in not just God of War, but video game history.
But this time, brother. This time I will destroy you. Call it my 13th and final labor. Soon I will become the god of war and claim the throne for myself.
Kicking off the top 5, we have Hercules, also from God of War 3. This is a character who was only introduced as Kratos' stepbrother in this third game, and yet the dialogue between the step siblings before their battle truly is that good that it makes it feel like this feud has been going on since the beginning of the franchise. Hercules is bigger, tougher, and more cockier than the pale Spartan. And this is what makes this battle so enjoyable, as you show Hercules who truly is the stronger sibling. The fight also takes place in a fitting, curvaceous arena similar to a Colosseum, alluring to the gladiatorial carnage present within the fight. Kratos rips off Hercules' armour and gauntlets and uses his own weapons to give him a heavy metal facelift. Coming in at number 4 is Hades, the god of the underworld from God of War 3. Where I said that Pandora's Guardian had the most interesting boss design, Hades certainly has the coolest, as he wears this sinister looking helmet filled with flames and has multiple black spikes protruding from his back. He does not look like he's just walked out from the heavens, but instead spent an eternity in hell. This cool design translates well into his moveset, as he has one of the best set of attacks in the franchise that consists of warping the stage, AoE, ranged, magic attacks, and even turning into a large form. What Hades' bosses lacks is a more satisfying finisher.
None can change their destiny, Kratos. We sisters determine the fate of all. It was I who deemed that the Titans lose the Great War, and I who have allowed you to come this far.
Coming in at third place, we have the Sisters of Fate from God of War 2, which consist of Clotho, Lachesis, and Atropos. The weakest fight from the three sisters is Clotho, the one who looks like Alice in Wonderland Caterpillar's grandmother. Her fight consists of a level-based puzzle that is built around her. It's a refreshing fight and highly creative from a design standpoint. However, the battle against Clotho's two other sisters is what puts them at this third spot. Lachesis and Atropos work together to take you down in a multiple stage fight that involves fighting in the Ares battle from God of War 1 and also utilising time control to gain an advantage over the sisters. All three of these sisters feature intricate, amazing boss designs, movesets and settings, and are some of the best bosses in God of War 2.
You do not want this fight.
Oh, I'm pretty sure I do.
Our runner-up is the Norse god Baldur from God of War 4. You face Baldur in the first hour of the game as he delivers one of the best opening bosses in the franchise. You'll encounter him multiple times throughout your adventure, but reach your final climax with the god at the very end of the game. Both of these fights deliver a huge amount of decimation and havoc, as for the first time in the series, it truly feels that Kratos has met his match. Which incidentally causes these fights to bring out the full power of Kratos' rage, and for also the first time makes you feel like a true god of war. Atreus also becomes a big part of the final Baldur fight, using all of his skills that he has been taught throughout the game. Baldur is one of the greatest villains in the franchise, and his battles don't fail on the delivery. They are big, explosive, and action-packed, and thoroughly deserving of the number 2 spot on this list.
Taking pity on you has been my greatest mistake, Kratos. Just as taking pity on this thing will prove to be your greatest mistake.
This has nothing to do with her!
It has everything to do with her!
Put her down!
As you wish.
But at number 1 we have the king of the Olympian gods, Zeus from God of War 2 and 3. While in God of War 2 his fight brings a climactic end to the second game, his confrontation in the third game is where Zeus truly shines, with refreshing stages as you are pitted against him in a 2D fighting game style fight, and later inside the Titan Gaia. Zeus's battles always keep you on your toes, challenging you with fast strikes and powerful attacks. This guy put Kratos through years of hell, and even killed you in the second game. He's Kratos' father, and yet has one of the best rivalries with him in all of gaming history. This is why Zeus has not one, but 2 epic showdowns, and stands at number 1 on my list. And so that's all the God of War bosses ranked. This was a crazy long video to make, but I really enjoyed it and I hope you liked it too. If you did, don't forget to like and subscribe for more awesome content. Thanks for watching everyone, and have a nice day.